Hey guys, what's happening? So we are back with more of the Venom War madness, where so far we've been shown that this is about more than what it seemed to be at first. Because when it started, it looked like it was just going to be Eddie Brock versus his son Dylan Brock, with the two of them trying to keep the Venom symbiote away from each other. But over time, it revealed that we're also dealing with Doom versus Kang. And fast forward to now, with God Carnage stepping in, he acknowledges Meridius as far as his position of power, but at the end of the day, he still sees Meridius as Eddie. So let's talk about it. But first, if you're enjoying these videos, be sure to drop a like, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and don't forget to hit that bell up top to get all notifications. Alright, so coming back, just recently we talked about the events that had taken place in Grand Garden Arena, which involved Doom setting up Flexo decades ago so it would attack Eddie in this precise moment. So for the most part going forward, we're going to focus on what happened outside of the garden and keep all of that separate until the events come back together. But before we do, I also want to mention when we got this moment, when Peter was left to figure out what he should do as far as whether or not he should keep the Venom symbiote or give it to Eddie or give it to Dylan. I do gotta say, with how this is set up, we practically get the same moment between three different issues. Between Venom War Spider-Man issue 3 showing Peter's consciousness get raptured out of this moment so he could see what would happen in the future if he kept the symbiote, in addition to the events of Venom War issues 2 and 3, which stayed in the present as if Peter didn't blip to the future, see a whole movie of his life and come back, which again I thought was a really cool way to show the Spider-Man King in Black story. But just before we move forward from here, really quickly I want to point out a couple of the factors that weighed into Peter's decision as far as what to do with the Venom symbiote after he decided he wasn't going to keep it. And this mainly comes from Venom War Part 3, because with Peter seeing that Eddie was critically injured, it was clear to him why Eddie needed the symbiote. And Venom didn't disagree, but he was like, man, Dylan needs me too. Because after everything we've seen in the Venom series, 37 issues up to this point, for the vast majority of that, Dylan has been without his father. He's been homeless, an only child, and dealing with everything in between without his father. So now when it nearly seemed like he was going to get his dad back, only for things to take a turn to the point where he almost lost him again. And the emotion in this moment coming from Dylan, it was best expressed in Venom War Part 3. And I wanted to make sure and bring that up since we were more focused on Peter in the last one. And going forward, I do believe the more personal details of Eddie and Dylan's relationship heading into this moment where they were both given the Venom symbiote is going to play a much larger role down the line. And maybe not even in Venom War, because in the grand scope, this event just feels like something fun that's happening to stir up things for the movie, because we already know as soon as this is done, Dr. Doom is taking the spotlight. But aside from this, when we head back over to Alchemax HQ, where like we saw Liz Allen along with Carlton Drake from the Life Foundation, which was recently acquired by Alchemax, were in a meeting that was initially being held to figure out what to do about Eddie Brock taking over the garden. Because keep in mind, this is happening alongside what we saw before, with Eddie Brock taking over the Grand Garden Arena and symbiote Spider-Man making his way there. Because it was during this meeting where Carlton Drake mentioned that Alchemax already had a solution in the works, which is where he then brought in Meridius, who was like your alternate future evil Eddie Brock. And at this time, Meridius presented to the group Chemical K-44, and out of everyone here, Liz Allen, she already knew about Chemical K-43 because throughout both the Venom and Carnage series, K-43 has been the most common version of the K-chemical that we've seen show up, with it mainly being used to just kill symbiotes. But now, after the events of Blood Hunt, Meridius has used the resources of Alchemax to cook up K-44. Because if you guys remember, during Blood Hunt, when we covered the tie-in from Venom issue 33, it was at this time when the Captive reanimated Lee Price, the previous host of the Venom symbiote, to use him as bait to lure in the Venom symbiote who had no host at the time. And the Captive was able to do this by reanimating the symbiote traces that were still in Lee's body, which as a result effectively made Lee Price a zombiote. So long story short, Venom bonded with the zombiote Lee Price to defeat the Captive. But after defeating the Captive, Meridius showed up and he took the zombiote Lee Price from Venom. So after this, Meridius used the samples from Lee Price, which the Captive was able to control, and he added it to K-43. So now, instead of just having K-43 as a chemical solution to kill symbiotes, this introduces K-44, which will create other zombiotes like Lee Price that Meridius can control. And we've already seen the results of K-44 getting out of hand in the Venom War Venomous tie-in. But in the here and now, this is Liz Allen learning about zombiotes for the first time. So she tells Meridius this is no different than the symbiotex, which was a thing in Web of Carnage Misery, that may or may not come back, because the whole thing with future Dylan looks like it's leaning towards that. Because in addition to seeing them in Web of Carnage Misery, we had another one show up heading into Venom War, who was protecting a secret Alchemax facility. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if there was a path to a dystopian future where these things were involved with taking out humanity, or converting people to zombiotes and using them as batteries. Who knows? But either way, it's here in the middle of this conversation where a security guard runs into the room to let them know that the zombiotes have gotten out in the basement lab. So of course Carlton Drake, he goes into panic mode. But Meridius is not bothered because he's in control of this, so he just forces Carlton Drake to consume K-44, and he's just like, take that, take that. So from here, the zombiote Carlton Drake starts infecting and turning everyone else in the room, which from there forces Liz Allen's hand to turn into Misery, which is a symbiote she's had for some time now, that's a hybrid of Anti-Venom and Carnage. And this is something that only a handful of people knew at first, like Dr. Steven and Flash Thompson, and eventually Carnage figured this out as well. But right here where Liz goes to attack and use Anti-Venom against Meridius and these zombiotes, which mind you, she's not even sure about, cause she's never fought zombiotes before. But it's here where Meridius draws a water gun, loaded with the original K chemical, to weaken Liz, just before he winds up and punches her out the window. But the funny thing about this is, when Meridius does this, he literally punches Liz out of the Venom War main series and into the Venom War Venomous tie-ins. And it almost feels like in Mortal Kombat when you punch a character through the stage, but in this case he just punched her into another issue. And when this is done, it's here where we see the zombiotes that Flash and Widow ran into in the basement laboratory of Alchemax. They've made their way to the streets. But on top of that, with Eddie's broadcast takeover coming from the Grand Garden Arena being shown on screens all across the city, for a moment here this gives us a bit of a bird's eye view as far as what's going on where, because like I mentioned before, a lot of this is happening at the exact same time. And at this point for Liz, she's finding out much of this information like back to back to back. It wasn't too long ago when she discovered that Alchemax was building the K chemical right under her nose, and fast forward to now, it's already a K-44, so as soon as she learned about zombiotes, she's just tossed into the deep end. And as far as the situation with Eddie Brock at the garden, she saw the initial broadcast like everyone else. So now with her seeing Dylan Brock on the huge screen turn into the Prince in Black, she's still trying to figure out what's going on. But as Liz is here on the street level, fighting off zombiotes left and right, back over at Alchemax HQ, Meridius is confronted by Carnage. And it kind of catches Meridius off guard at first because he doesn't recognize Carnage right away. And I mean, I don't know how that is, but he figures it out pretty quick because Carnage is the only person here who didn't turn into a zombiote. But what this ends up giving us here is a situation where Carnage has come to Meridius to bargain. And this really just stems from what we saw in the Carnage series and in the Venom War Carnage tie-ins, because prior to this, Carnage was nearly killed by K-43, which then led him to investigating more about it, like we saw in Venom War Carnage. But at the end of the day, this isn't Carnage trying to be Meridius' friend, nor is Meridius trying to be his, because prior to this, Carnage completely wrecked Meridius' garden, and that's not something that Meridius has forgotten. So between the two of them, this is more of a ceasefire than it is any type of alliance of sorts. And we'll go much deeper into that when we get back into Venom War Carnage, but in the here and now with Carnage wanting to make a bargain, Meridius just tells him that he doesn't need him, because as it stands, with Meridius having his zombiotes spread all over the city, they're creating more zombiotes and even more symbiote matter, which will eventually allow Meridius to build another garden, though this time around he tells Carnage that it'll be new and improved, a Venom world, which will be made possible when Meridius obtains the Venom symbiote. While on the other hand with Carnage, he just tells Meridius that he wants the soul of Eddie Brock, which as we know that's been God Carnage's endgame for quite some time. So from here, both Carnage and Meridius just watch the chaos take place from up above, because at this point Meridius just plans to let Eddie Brock tire himself out, so from there he can swoop in and take back the Venom symbiote and get started on building his new garden, using all the symbiote material that the zombiotes have produced. But it's kind of funny how in this moment, Meridius is just telling Carnage his whole plan, and he's even thanking Carnage at this point for showing Eddie the vision that Carnage got from Meridius' mind when he showed Eddie Venom World and asked him what it meant, because Meridius believes this ended up helping him in the larger picture. So he tells Carnage, "I hope there are no hard feelings. I'd hate for us to fall out now." And mind you, throughout this conversation, Carnage keeps calling Meridius Eddie, and Meridius does not like that. So in response, Carnage goes on to say, "I know a winner when I see one, Eddie, and I'm happy to watch you work. But have you really thought of everything? So of course this has Meridius thinking this is the point where Carnage shows his true colors, and he uses that Necro spear on him. So Carnage holds it up like, yeah, you know what to do, only for Meridius to hold his ground while saying, yet despite all that power, I'm still standing with my army of zombiotes. But Carnage isn't ready to get it poppin' just yet, cause he tells Meridius, simmer down, Eddie, we're just talking. A nice friendly chat between equals. And as your equal, I wanted to give you a friendly warning that no matter how much you may have rigged the game, there's always a wild card. Which from here, this now has us heading over to Widow and Flash, who are where we saw them last down in the Cadaver Lab underneath Alchemax HQ. Cause last time we saw them in Venom War Venomous issue 1, they had been just overwhelmed by a ton of zombiotes who for the most part were bonded with deceased bodies. But it's here where they're fighting their way out when Flash hits one of these zombiotes and he realizes that his anti-venom is able to cure this guy. So he keeps trying it on a number of other zombiotes, just knocking the black off of them left and right. But it only works in the cases where the host is someone that's still alive. So quickly Widow webs up a makeshift safe room for the scientists, so her and Flash can go after the other zombiotes who are making a break for it through the elevator shaft. And on the way up, Flash, he's able to cure more people. So what they end up doing is just webbing them up and leaving them there, so later on he can just tell Liz to send somebody to come get them. But when they get up to the ground level, it is just chaotic up here, with a ton of zombiotes having made their way out and turning others into more zombiotes. But now with Widow and Flash on the ground, Flash spots Liz, and it's here where Widow learns about Liz Allen having a symbiote. But even more importantly, it's here where Liz tells Flash that she's able to heal people by using her anti-venom. So Flash is like, yeah, I can too, but I gotta punch people. And so Liz tells him like, no, all you have to do is concentrate, which is helpful information for Flash, because now it's not like he has to go around just throwing hands at civilians while screaming in their face, I'm trying to save you. So after this, when they all see on the huge broadcast screens the chaos that's going down at Grand Garden Arena, Liz tells them that she has to stop Eddie, only for Flash to tell her no, because he'd prefer that she'd stay here with Widow, so they can hold off the zombiotes and keep them from spreading, while Flash makes his way to Grand Garden Arena to try and talk some sense into Eddie, which from here now leaves Widow and Liz, aka Misery, to figure out what they're gonna do about this zombiote horde. And so now real quick, I want to give a shout out to all the patrons. Thank you guys for all of your support. And for anyone who's new here, who wants more information on how to support the channel, I got a link below where you can go to patreon.com/dopespill. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and we'll do it again on the next one. Alright, later.